Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first, let's hear from our podcast sponsors that make this all possible. We want to say thanks to Final Forms, the industry leader in registration. But you need to know this: Final Forms is more than just forms. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and it provides schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms helps your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, has reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that go along with being a student athlete. Final Forms also helps with team communication and attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this with secure language translation and ADA compliance. It's time for you to talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started with the Final Forms team. We also want to thank Area Scouts. Area Scouts provides athletes ages 8 and up with state-of-the-art assessments and sport and movement specific development programs for all skill levels in all sports. Area Scouts also provides a one-of-a-kind worldwide online platform emphasizing sport-specific performance while focusing on overall athlete health and safety. And the best part, Area Scouts also works with youth, high school, and college coaches from across the country. Go to areascouts.com right now to enroll your athlete or team in the base assessment today. That's biomechanics, athleticism, sequence, and endurance. That's areascouts.com. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year while also creating the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com and see exactly what these fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thank you to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. They're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen consoles and an entire library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, and go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or you can call them at 614-981-3589 or email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Bring your school's legacy to life. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to elevate the performance of their teams using video and analytics. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They have online tools, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. There's always been analytics, but there's a whole lot more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from club and youth programs all the way through high school and college teams. And even the pros use Huddle to help their athletes perform at their highest. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes and the coaches of the teams you're trying to get to recruit your kids. You want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your school by going to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment of our podcast. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also connects you with the 95% of the players and the parents that really love your program, and gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to connect with your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Got a really cool guest today from the world of coaching, Skye Eddy. She is the founder of Soccer Parenting. She's also a writer, a speaker, an educator. Also, pretty well known in the coaching world. She's a U.S. Soccer National Certified Coach. And today she's going to tell us a little bit about what she does, and also that special aspect that we are always looking for as athletic directors, working with parents. So, Skye Eddy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Appreciate it.
Well, as you and I were speaking before we started recording, working with parents, dealing with parents, as we like to say, partnering with parents, it's always a task for athletic directors and coaches. So anytime we can get another perspective to help our athletic directors, help our coaches, it's certainly going to, have a positive impact on the entire athletic program. But we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that 5-minute bio, where you were born, where you grew up, went to college and all that, and maybe a little sports background, and what brought you to this point where you founded Soccer Parenting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I grew up in Northern Virginia in Reston. So I am a Title IX baby, born in 1971. So had the wonderful benefits of growing up in an environment where in the moment I felt like I had every opportunity available to me in sport. I never really felt turned away from anything, thankfully, especially growing up in Reston, which is such a progressive and new community. I also had the benefit of having some wonderful female role models in sport along the way. I never had a lot of coaches that were women, but our assistant athletic director, Mrs. Ledane, in high school was, a great role model for me. And so when I went off to college, I played collegiately soccer at the University of Massachusetts. I also was a competitive track athlete in high school. And when I went off to college to University of Massachusetts, I decided that I wanted to be an athletic director, in fact. And I was a sport management major at the University of Massachusetts, which is a great sport management program. And the whole time I was in college, my idea was that I wanted to be a college AD. So it's interesting for me to circle back and be on this podcast today with ADs. I never did pursue that directly. But I've definitely used my degree in sport management from UMass, to my advantage in the work that I'm doing and the work that I have done. I was an All-American at college. I think this is a good perspective on where we are in America right now in sport. I was first team All-American. I was MVP of the Final Four. And that was the last game I ever played because there just weren't pro opportunities available. And to see women now getting drafted out of college and having these amazing professional careers is so inspiring to me. And so, part of my story is that I kind of grew up on this wave of sport for women, this wave of soccer especially, and just sort of have ridden it this whole time and had so many great opportunities. I did go overseas and play professionally in Italy about 6 years after I graduated college, sort of as this last ditch effort to try to, bring back this. And I had the most amazing experience, but I really don't, it was such a offshoot of my actual experiences that I don't really consider that it was a continuation of my career by any means. Out of college, I worked in for a manufacturer, Lanzera, and so I have a strong background in manufacturing. I was a promotions marketing manager for them, worked for their team sales, and then have always been a coach. Since high school, I was a coach. I was a goalkeeper in soccer, and I would do goalkeeper training for kids, younger kids in the community. And I am a longtime director for Dr. Macknick with the #1 goalkeeper camps, and then Tony Tachico with Soccer Plus camps. Mm-hmm. And so would spend much of my summer, all of my summers, on the road with them, directing camps all over the United States at a very high level. And then when I was no longer working at Lanzera, I pursued a college coaching career, which is what brought me to Richmond, Virginia, where I am now. And I was the assistant at the University of Richmond for 3 years until about 20 years ago now. And that sort of prompted me to start soccer parenting and get involved in a youth space here in the Richmond area, which is really where soccer parenting began, from the experiences that my kids were having in the game. And this just acute awareness that I had that youth sport would be better if there were collaborative relationships between coaches, clubs, and parents. And so really decided to dive into that culture and try to make an impact as far as that's concerned.
Now we're going to talk. You're going to talk about soccer parenting and what that all involves. But you mentioned Title IX. What are some of the changes that you've seen? And again, you've been not a college player for a couple of years. But what are some changes that you've seen? Hopefully positive, from when you were playing to now. You mentioned the professional opportunities, certainly that's great. The women's national team finally, getting the equal pay. But what are some changes maybe at the college level that you've noticed from your involvement?
Yeah, that's a great question. People ask me that a lot, and because I feel like my generation was so uniquely positioned that when I went off to college as a full ride athlete, I had a lot of great opportunities for me. I will say what really gave me some perspective in college was that I also played basketball for a year at UMass. And so here's the women's soccer team traveling in vans, where literally as a student athlete, I was driving one of the vans sometimes to our game at Dartmouth or whatever. And we would have like $7.50 to spend for the meal after the game. We had such limited budgets, 4 people to a room when we were on the road. And then I played basketball, and we're taking buses everywhere. We have 2 people in a room. We have $25 to spend for dinner. Like, it totally blew me. So that disparity between what was available to even women's teams in college. What I see now is happening is that, the whole level has been raised across the board for women's sports. So I don't think there's these large differences between sports within collegiate programs. And I have a daughter who's 21 years old. She's working this summer as an intern at Hartford Athletic and pro soccer. And I feel like the opportunities that she has available to her are so much broader than for me. I was often the first female in the room, the first female coach a boy had ever had. I was absolutely the first female director for these camps. And so other male coaches having to get used to having a female directing them. Like, that was a lot. I felt like I was the first female a lot. And fortunately now we're well past that. And so I feel like the base of opportunities that are available to women now that are coming up in sport, whether that be pursuing opportunities as an administrator, as a coach, are much more broad reaching and normalized.
I appreciate you sharing. And again, it's a great perspective, over the years, and good compare and contrast. Yeah. For our listeners, our guest today is Skye Eddy. She's the founder of Soccer Parenting, longtime soccer player, soccer coach. We're going to hear some more from her, but let's take a quick break and hear from one of our sponsors. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Final Forms for their support of the podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration, but Final Forms is more than just forms. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and it provides schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms also helps your stakeholders with mobile accessibility. It has reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms that go with being a high school athlete. Final Forms also helps with team communication and attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for athletic directors, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this with secure language translation and ADA compliance. You know, it's time for you to talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake to get started on the Final Forms team. Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting today with Skye Eddy, the founder of Soccer Parenting. Skye, one of the questions we always ask our guests is about the mentors that they've had in their life. And coaching and administration, leadership and mentorship is so important. The expression that I like to use is, I still hear those voices in my head. So whose voice do you still hear from back in the day?
Oh yeah, great question. I have a few people that probably come to mind, people that I reflect about frequently. I've mentioned two of them, Dr. Matnick, who I worked for at a really impressionable time in my early 20s in college. And Doc is a incredible coach, and he has amazing demonstration skills. So from Dr. Matnick, I really learned the power that we have to express ourselves as coaches and grab the attention of the people who are in front of us and to transform them in their belief of what they believe they're capable of, merely by the words that we're using, the way that we're bringing ourselves. This is the first time for me as a coach that I just found myself in a zone. I just totally would get lost in my coaching. And I learned these skills from Dr. Matnick, who gave me the permission, if you will, to really put my whole self forward as I was working with youth athletes and coaching. And Doc is still somebody that I keep in close touch with. His wife, Barbara, who managed the camp, he gave me my first opportunity to be a female director at these camps, and he wholeheartedly believed in me and my capabilities. And he really has meant a lot to me over the years. Another wonderful mentor, man, I'm just so lucky to have crossed paths. This is just some incredible human beings, was Tony Tachico. Tony sadly passed away, I think 5 years ago now. He was the coach of the women's 99 team, the soccer team of Brandy Chastain took off our shirt, won the World Cup. Tony was the head coach for that team, and he was also the director and owner of Soccer Plus Camps, who I then worked for as well. And Tony, man, he just had this magnetic personality. He was just such a giver. He cared so deeply about the people that were in front of him. Highly, as all great coaches are, emotionally intelligent and very, very self-aware. He's probably somebody who I learned some incredible skills about reflection from, how we can be better, how we can support kids more. He also had very, very, I was about to use the word strict, but instead I would just say very clear standards about what it meant to work in his organization and to be a coach within his organization in terms of how we interact with students, campers, and how we give. Working these camps for both of these men were incredibly hard. it was grueling summers. I could have made much more money working college camps and having really easy days. But these were some of the best moments of my life. And so this wonderful sense of community that emerged from both of them and their leadership. So Doc and Tony are certainly two people that I consider to be really strong mentors. And, I have to go back to Mrs. Ledeen, who I referenced a couple of years ago. I was inducted into my high school Hall of Fame, and I spoke about Miss Ledeen in my speech because I remember sitting at a class at UMass about being an athletic director. Like, that was the title of the sport management class. And the professor at the front of the room making a comment about how this might be hard for the women that are in the room to imagine because you haven't seen an athletic director. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that thought never crossed my mind that being an athletic director, there might be a barrier up to that because of my gender, because Miss Ledeen was just such a strong leader. And I'm really happy that I had the chance to tell her that in my induction speech. She was sitting right there in front. I could look right at her as I was speaking and let her know what an impact she had on me and countless other women and men, absolutely, over the years. So those are the three people that come to mind. And then I just have to give a quick shout out to my track coach in high school, Mr. Dobson, who was just phenomenal. And again, just giving and giving and giving and supporting. And been really lucky over the years to have some incredible people in my life.
Well, again, our regular listeners hear me say this all the time, but it's so true. I just love hearing these stories, and you can just feel the love that you have for these individuals that had an impact on your life. Also, as a longtime promoter of the multi-sport experience, I love it that, here's another, college athlete, scholarship athlete, All-American athlete that was a multi-sport athlete in high school. So I appreciate you giving that little shout out.
No,
For
absolutely.
our listeners, we're visiting today with Skye Eddy. She's the founder of Soccer Parenting, also a national certified soccer coach, very active on the soccer scene. We're going to be back some more, but let's take another quick break. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank Area Scouts for their support. Area Scouts provides athletes ages 8 and up with state-of-the-art assessments and sport and movement-specific development programs for all skill levels in all sports. Area Scouts also provides a one-of-a-kind worldwide online platform emphasizing sport-specific performance while focusing on overall athlete health and safety. And the best part, Area Scouts also works with youth, high school, and college coaches from across the country. Go to areascouts.com and enroll your athlete or team in the BASE assessment today. That's BASE, biomechanics, athleticism, sequence, and endurance. Go to areascouts.com. Welcome back again to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Skye Eddy, the founder of Soccer Parenting. We're going to hear a little bit more about that later. But Skye, talk a little bit about that coaching experience. A lot of our ADs, they start out as teacher coaches and then move into administration. So talk about that experience that you had coming out of college, high level player, but now you're working with kids that might not have those same high level skills. So how was that jumping into the world of coaching?
It was a pretty easy transition for me, to be clear. The majority of the coaching that I did up until maybe 15 years ago was individual training for goalkeepers. So it's very technical, specific, and motivational. So the transition from college and playing into coaching was a very natural one for me that, didn't necessarily strike me. But I will say something that I've learned over the years is where I want to coach. I feel like there's so much pressure on us as coaches to keep going, to start at the youth level, then go to the high school level, then go to the college level, then go to the pro level. And I've coached across all levels of soccer. I've coached with our national team programs. I've coached collegiately. I've coached at these high level camps. I've coached internationally. I've coached the youth game. And where I feel the most connected to the athletes that I'm working with is at like the U10, U11 level. Like the kids that I'm coaching right now, this team that's behind me, like this is where I'm best positioned with my personality, with my skill sets, with the way that I like to communicate and bring myself forward. So I think that that's been a really great lesson for me to one, feel comfortable with that, not have to say that I'm coaching with our national teams, but I'm coaching U10 kids in a local rec league or a local, travel league, and I love it. And the same lessons like are layered in to all those levels. To be clear, it's about connection, it's about motivation, it's about establishing a sense of autonomy, providing a connection and a love of the game to the athletes that you're working with, developing a fun environment, whatever that fun means for those kids in that level. I think even at the international level, it has to be fun if people are going to keep doing it. We know that from research. So my coaching has been very varied, but what always has been the connecting point for me is the connection, is connecting with athletes and now parents, because at this level that I'm coaching now, there's a little bit more parent interaction.
You and I were talking about this before we recorded, but I'm going to go ahead and throw that grenade out on the table right now.
Sure.
Most of my career as an AD was in the private school setting, and I was very fortunate. We had some great coaches that were teachers in the building. We also had some great coaches from the community. One in particular, the director of our soccer program, had the biggest, most successful, in any way you want to measure success, developing kids, nurturing young minds, and also winning championships. Just very successful, and was one of the very few coaches, I'll say club coaches, and I know that's a big umbrella, but was one of the very few club coaches that I ever met that put a premium on the high school experience, and that made sure that the high school kids that he was coaching, both from our boys and girls team, that they had that same priority, and sent tons of kids onto the college level. Very successful, had a very active club season too. But why do you think, I'm putting you on the spot here, why do you think that is not, we don't see that more often, that club and high school working together, collaborating, as you said?
Well, I think there's two things that stand out to me that are what I consider to be issues on the high school structures that might promote that. But before I explain those, what I want to say is that I'm a huge proponent of high school sports. I think that, the sense of community, this connection that athletes feel is just 100% different. My daughter played at a very high level here in Richmond, and for her club team. And she also played for her high school, who was state champion, lost in the state final, like a high level club team as well, but even our high school team as well. But even regardless of that, the intensity that was felt by her when she was competing for her high school, what she brought to the table was totally different than the club. So there's some magic there that we need to unpack, and we need to appreciate as coaches, as parents, as educators, as administrators, that the high school environment brings something special. So I'm really a big fan of high school sports. I actually think we need to expand high school sports because we need to give more opportunities to kids. But that's a whole different conversation. The two things that I wanted to get to that I think sometimes are the roadblocks to the sense of collaboration, or why athletes don't play high school, or why there might be some issues, is player safety. There's way too many games in high school. These kids don't have time to recover between games. Like, this is not basketball. This is soccer. Like, you usually play one game a week. And the high school season, these kids are playing 4 games sometimes in a week, which is just absolutely unheard of. And from a player well-being and a recovery standpoint, it's really dangerous for a high-level athlete with aspirations to continue playing, to do that to their body. There's just no time for recovery. And so Unfortunately, we have like whether I don't have any statistics about this, but my idea is that there's a lot of injuries that happen as a result of playing too much and not having enough recovery. So that's something that athletic directors need to think about when, I really do hope that, I'm not like stirring the pot here with this, but it's a player safety issue that needs to be addressed differently with a number of games that happen in such a defined season. And then the other thing is just the quality of coaching, like, yeah, you have a great coach. That's great. But, if it's a coach that isn't as qualified as some of the local coaches that's coaching the high school team, that can sometimes cause some friction. And so, the idea there, I've seen great partnerships happen where it's the math teacher that played soccer growing up, that's the head coach, and then a club coach that comes in as an assistant under them, and they have a wonderful collaborative relationship and accomplish so much together. So, that might be just, again, not trying to stir the pot with your audience, but, if we're going to have some real talk about how high school soccer and sports can improve, for me, those are the two things that come to mind. That being said, all of the work that I'm doing at Soccer Parenting is about establishing trust and so opening the door to conversations between local clubs and the high schools. I think there's a lot of really good opportunities to do that in terms of providing opportunities for high school kids to continue to play, be more engaged. We're starting to see some good partnerships that are evolving between high schools and clubs with almost like an intramural right after high school type program that's happening where more kids can play soccer and the school is sort of sponsoring these sports. So I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities that exist to establish these trustful collaborative relationships so that ultimately, if what should happen, that our best athletes be playing high school soccer, that can happen.
Yeah,
I went off in a lot of directions. Sorry.
Oh, no, not at all. And I love hearing the perspective. We're our podcast is heard. We have listeners because our analytics tell us that we have listeners in all 50 states and in 51 different countries. So I'm curious to maybe see what kind of feedback we get. I think the scheduling of games for the high school season, I really think it varies quite a bit from state to state. I know in Florida, I think our listeners in Florida would respectfully disagree that the high school season is very well regulated as far as number of games. There's some outliers, of course. I'm curious, are you familiar with the book? I'm probably going to butcher this title. It's maybe 10 or 12 years old, Warrior Girls. Are you familiar with that title?
Yeah,
Okay.
I have that book.
Okay, yeah. And I mean, the author of that book, took the conversation that you and I are having in a completely different direction, but I was just curious about that. Anyway, great stuff.
And I will say also, as far as the size of the country, and we run into this in club soccer as well. What happens in Virginia is not what happens in Kansas, is not what happens in Northern California. And so for me to make broad reaching statements about all of high school sports does not help establish the sense of trust and connection that we're seeking. Right. I get that. So, that's certainly not my intention, but, if based on experiences that I hear, the feedback that I get from our listeners, that, there's a lot of player safety worries about the number of games that are played. And so if you are in an area that doesn't have stricter regulations about the number of matches that can happen in the course of a week, then maybe that's something that as an athletic director, you can look to influence, because that is, something that for me, in the work that I'm doing as an advocate for youth soccer players, just in general, is something that's really, really important to me.
Right. And I definitely want to make that point. I'm not trying to put you on the spot at all. I think the player safety that you address, it doesn't matter if it's high school or club or whatever. Right. It's that frequency of the number of contacts that they are going to have in drills and games, et cetera. That's the factor, those overuse injuries that we're trying to avoid. Okay. Very good stuff. Okay. We're going to do this at the end. But if one of our listeners wants to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, find out a little bit more about soccer parenting, which we're going to go into in our next segment, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, all of my contact information is on soccerparenting.com, which is our public website. You can follow me on Twitter, and DMing on Twitter is usually a good way to reach out. And that's either Soccer Parenting or Skye Eddy on Twitter. And then, like I said, all my contact information is on soccerparenting.com.
Okay. Again, for our listeners, we're visiting today with Skye Eddy, the founder of Soccer Parenting. We're going to take a deep dive into soccer parenting when we come back. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 200,000 teams use Huddle to help their teams play better using video and analytics. Huddle is the complete performance platform. They have online tools, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. They have always had analytics, but there's a lot more. Huddle is also built for every level of play, from club and youth programs all the way through high school and college teams, and even the pros use Huddle to help their athletes perform at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes and the coaches of the college teams you're trying to get to recruit your kids. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and your program and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Skye Eddy, the founder of Soccer Parenting. Skye, what is soccer parenting, and why should our listeners find out more about it?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So I founded Soccer Parenting 8 years ago now, as my daughter was coming up in the game. It just became very clear to me that, as I said earlier, that if there were collaborative relationships, if the door was open to me to go and talk to her coach, that would be in the best interest of Callie's development. And so this idea was born from that. It was also born from this idea that parents need education. And so when I founded Soccer Parenting, the term that was generally used across the globe was parent education. Now we are using this term parent engagement more, but education is a very, very important component of engagement. And so at Soccer Parenting, we look at ourselves as a thought leader when it comes to club cultures, culture within youth sport in general. I've written about the benefits of high school sports. I've written about this dynamic that we've talked about briefly about why more kids aren't playing high school sport, or why there might be some stress there. So we're talking and writing and a thought leader about these topics. But what we've done is we've developed an education platform for youth sports parents, specifically soccer parents. And so we have clubs, individuals, state associations, schools that are buying access to this education platform for their youth soccer parents. And we do believe that when parents seek education about how to best support their child, that great things will happen. And so the education platform is very robust. We're writing about topics such as the body, how growth impacts development, periodization, injury prevention, recovery, all of those types of things you would imagine about the body in general, very broad ranging. The mind, mental performance, motivation, the parents' role, how coaches can support kids with developing a strong mindset, those types of things. The next level, whether that be going from playing rec to high school, or whether that be going from playing high school or club soccer to college, whatever that next level might be for that child, the coach-club relationship, and parenting. So those are the topics that we're providing education content around. And it's a very robust platform where we're adding education weekly to the site, and hosting webinars, education opportunities. There's courses. So that's essentially what Soccer Parenting is. It's this education platform that clubs are buying access to. And so, really, I've said a couple times, use the words trust and collaboration. And I like to think that, by clubs and organizations and schools offering the education platform to their parents, they're basically saying, you're important. You have a role. The impact that you have on your child's sporting experience is important. We don't think that you're crazy. Not every soccer youth sports parent is a crazy parent. We actually value you. And so here's a tool for you. And so the education platform is also an engagement tool that organizations are using to connect, support the parents that are in their organizations.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. And you mentioned the terms, the popular terms now, parent engagement. Our national organization for ADs, the NIAAA, just recently released a new course called Partnering with Parents. And I was very fortunate to be part of that authorship team. And again, not to give away the course, but again, it's the idea about building that trust, building relationships, letting parents know that they are part of that process and trying to turn it into a positive collaboration, not, giving up, for lack of a better word, control
Right.
of the program, but involving them, partnering with them, if you will. What are maybe one or two highlights again that we can help convince that athletic director sitting in Florida or Kansas or somewhere to go to the website and check out more about what the program can offer?
Yeah, I think that that one of the important things that you just said, and that we're trying to we need to make clearer, is the structures that we have in place. And for so long, parents really haven't had a very defined role to play in the sport experience, and we've had such divisions. We've had the coaches over here, the parents over there, the athletic directors trying to mediate in between. And what we are doing at Soccer Parenting is we're giving clarity to this relationship. So this is the role of the parent. This is the role of the coach. These are the expectations. This is when the door is open. We're really defining what these relationships look like. And what we're finding is that once that definition is made and pronounced and obvious, then a lot of the stress that exists in that dynamic of the coach, parent, leader relationship is diminished. And the stress is gone because people are clear on what their role is and what's okay to say and what's not okay to say. Like when the door is open to talk to a coach, when it's not open. And also when we're having schools and clubs put out really clear standards about the interactions. I actually just pushed out an article about this yesterday on Soccer Parenting. Like, I'm so sick of opening my inbox and getting parent emails from frustrated parents who are asking me for validation for their stress because their child is being mistreated by the coach. And so, what needs to happen is that we need to have better standards and clarity in place. And this is where I think schools and coaches can gain some real insights, because a lot of the work I'm doing, of course, is parent education. But I will say that I spend the majority of my time doing coach education, club development, organizational development around these topics of leadership, of emotional intelligence and coaching, of parent engagement strategies. Because that's what's really going to drive the culture, is when our leaders in our organization have clarity around how to lead and the language to use and the standards to put in place so that people feel empowered, and that obviously at the end of the day, that the children in the organization are benefiting the most from these better relationships between coaches and parents and leaders.
Really good stuff. And, you put that in language that I think our listeners, which are ADs and coaches, can understand and see those benefits. So I would hope that Listeners, I'm talking to you. You're going to be going to soccerparenting.com and checking out this information. Once again, our guest today is Skye Eddy, the founder of Soccer Parenting, and pretty much a soccer expert from listening to her today. We're going to come back after a quick break, and we're going to find out about a new program that Skye Eddy is releasing. So please stay with us. More great stuff coming on the Educational AD podcast. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive for their support of the Educational AD podcast. Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every single year, while also creating the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com and see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com. Welcome back, everyone. We've been visiting with Skye Eddy, the founder of Soccer Parenting, longtime soccer coach and writer, speaker, and educator. Skye, before we took the break, I was kind of teasing the audience that you have a new program through Soccer Parenting. What's it all about? And again, why should our athletic directors, reach out to you about this?
Thank you for teeing that up. It's a program we're really excited about. The number one conversation that I have with club leaders, organizational leaders, schools is about sideline behavior. And so we have developed a program called the Sideline Project. You can find it at thesideline.project.com. And it is an intervention that is working. The response and the feedback that we're getting from parents has been really positive. The Sideline Project is a 15-minute course that parents and coaches, all spectators, referees even, we encourage to take. And it is framing sideline behavior a little bit differently. Interventions that we've had up to this point really haven't been working. Passing out lollipops to suck on isn't really a great intervention that stops the sideline screaming. Maybe giving a card to a coach for the behavior of their fans is sometimes something that happens within soccer. But we all know that our sidelines are a big problem. And the results of hostile behavior on the sidelines is resulting in us having nationwide shortages for officials across all sports, is a problem that is resulting in players' levels of satisfaction and connection and love to the game diminishing. Is an issue for coaches. So we all know that this is a big problem, and we've decided to tackle it. Like I said, the Sideline Project is a 15-minute course. We frame behavior at the Sideline Project around 3 buckets: supportive, distracting, and hostile. Of course, supportive communication and behavior is okay if your child's okay with it. We talk in the course about how my daughter, Callie, does not like to hear my voice at all. Even if I'm saying, "Good job, Hannah," the goalkeeper, it bothers Callie and gets her out of her focus. And so at her games, I don't say anything. Whereas my son likes to hear my supportive voice: "Good job, keep going, great work," those types of very supportive, neutral conversation or neutral communication at the appropriate times. So that's okay, because it's our children that need to lead this. And then we all know what hostile behavior is too. This is yelling at referees. This is yelling at other players. This is yelling at our children. This is completely unacceptable behavior in a youth sporting environment. And yet it's something that, has not been adequately addressed. And so the Sideline Project is a movement to end this hostile behavior. And one of the ways that we're really finding to do that is to give clarity to parents on the difference between supportive behaviors and distracting behaviors. Because what so often happens is that distracting behavior is essentially the stress of spectators living itself out loud in the environment. So this distracting behavior then turns into hostile behavior. So if we can eliminate the distracting behavior from the sidelines, this is telling a child, pass the ball, shoot, throw it into this person, like telling a child what to do in the minute in which they're trying to perform. If we can eliminate the distracting behavior, then the hostile behavior will be more pronounced and will be potentially less likely to happen. And so this education program, it's receiving really positive results. We've had 10,000 people take the course. The results that we're seeing in a two-question survey to parents, we ask, has your behavior improved as a result of taking the course? 33% of parents out front say, my behavior didn't need improvement. I was required to take this course by the team or the school, and so therefore I took it. But of the remaining people, 77% of the parents say that their behavior improved as a result of taking the course. Likewise, has your relationship with your child improved is the other question. And 67% of parents are saying that their relationship with their child improved simply as a result of taking this 15-minute course. So I encourage people to check it out. We are offering this shortly. I don't know when this podcast will be published, but we're offering it across all sport. Right now, it's doable for all sport, but it's geared more towards soccer. But if you go to the Sideline Project, you can reach out to me. You can join our mailing list there, and then we will notify you when we launch it across all sport. But that will be done in the coming. That will be done by, I know this is weird with the podcast, but by the middle of July 2022, we'll have this launched across all sports. So schools can buy access for the parents in the organization. And we're so excited to launch this across sports because we know that this is, one of the key issues that we need to address, that must be addressed when it comes to players' level of joy and satisfaction around their sporting experience. So just reframing what acceptable behavior is essential. And I think giving parents, what we're seeing is by giving them like buckets to say, so they can reflect and say, that was distracting. I never realized that before, but I think I'm helping, but I'm actually not helping long-term cognitive growth and skill acquisition by telling my kid what to do in the moment, telling them how many people to put in the wall, or telling them who to pass to, or who to look for in order for the next play, whatever that might be. So we're really, really excited about the Sideline Project and encourage people to reach out to us and let's get this launched across your school. And we're really excited to see the positive benefits that will result from it.
I really like the way you explained that. I love that term, distracting behaviors. We would do a lot of the stuff at our school, with our parents, and our parents were, for the most part, very good. But we would talk about this concept of one voice. Okay, we want your kids to hear one voice, and that's the voice of the coach. Cheer, of course. But as far as giving out instructions, like you said, shoot, pass, that sort of thing, just have one voice. But I love that, the visual that comes through the distracting behavior. So very good stuff. One more time, and we'll do this probably again for our listeners, our ADs, our coaches, even our parents who are listening. Where do they go to find out more information?
For the Sideline Project, the website is thesidelineproject.com. You can find all our contact information, learn more about becoming a partner there. And then for our education platform for sports parents, for soccer parents, it's Soccer Parent Resource Center, but you can find that information on soccerparenting.com. Really, it all kind of funnels into my inbox and into our staff's boxes. So, we're ready to help. Just reach out and we will get you set up with a introductory call and figure out how we can support your efforts to improve the sporting experience within your schools.
All right. Great stuff. Once again, for our listeners, we're visiting today with Skye Eddy, the founder of Soccer Parenting. Going to be back with some more. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs for their support. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They've got a variety of interactive touchscreen consoles and an extensive library of templates to help recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. Let them help you showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments, and go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. You can also call them at 614-981-3589 or shoot them an email at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest is Skye Eddy, the founder of Soccer Parenting. Skye, one of the questions that we've been asking our ADs has to do with this idea of toughness. I know a favorite term now is resilience, and I think they're really just trying to say tough. Back when I was playing 100 years ago, our coaches would say, come on, Jake, you got to be tough. And we knew what they meant, and we did it. I think in the many years since then, we've figured out better ways to communicate those ideas to kids. But in my opinion, toughness is still a very important aspect of the sport experience and of life. So my question to you is, how can we help kids develop toughness and also stay aware and sensitive to the very real social emotional challenges that a Generation Z kid experiences that I never had to experience? So do you have any advice for us?
And this is just such an important topic for us as leaders in youth sport today to be considering. It's something that's really ingrained into the work that we're doing at Soccer Parenting when it comes to supporting coaches in helping them develop an environment that is most conducive to an athlete's growth. So yes, sports has changed, huh? I mean, when I look back on the camps that I used to run and be involved with in the early 90s, like the intensity, the screaming, the yelling, the physical challenges that we would give these kids, like these things aren't happening anymore for a variety of some very good reasons. But we still need to find a way to reach children now to push them past their limits so that they'll see this growth. Like when I look back to my experiences, I was talking at Tony Tachico's his memorial service. It was a huge honor for me to be asked to speak at his memorial service. And what I said was that, we fooled a lot of people over the years in saying that Soccer Plus was a soccer camp, when in fact, that's not the case. This is a change your life forever camp. And we change kids' lives because of the pressure that we put them under, because of the stress that we put them under. So that's our unique challenge as coaches and leaders right now in youth sport, is to how to push children to find new limits within the constraints of what we know to be the best developmental environments. And so that's also a really big challenge in high school. I coached in high school. We had a very big, broad level between our lowest player and our top player. And so finding that balance within the team to be able to speak to the needs of the athletes was really, really challenging. But we owe it to our kids. So I would say that part of the ways that we will do that is by, unique things that are popping up that come to mind for me right away, or that are very unique, I think, to high school sport too, is leadership, is helping kids develop these really deep leadership traits with this concept of self-leadership, leading that. What it means to be a teammate. These are all lessons that are, I think, in some ways really uniquely learned within a school sporting environment. But I kind of have digressed a little bit from what I really wanted to talk about in with this question, and that is this idea of self-identity. And, we have a crisis with our children right now, and we're seeing this play out so sadly with college athletes committing suicide that, has happened recently. I was just heartbroken when the goalkeeper at Stanford committed suicide, the women's goalkeeper. And, this was a lot of self-identity issues that are coming out. And so how, as coaches, can we do that? Is that it's helping, going back to like just deeply caring for the athletes that are in front of us. And it's building connections like Mr. Dobson, my track coach in high school, built with me, where I knew that he cared more about me as a person than he did as an athlete, where I knew that I had a friend, somebody in my corner that would advocate for me and believe in me. And this is what we can't forget, that these are children in front of us that need mentorship, that need lessons in self-belief. And I got an voicemail from a parent yesterday who's almost crying on the phone saying, my daughter is struggling with anxiety and her coach screamed so loud at her across the field, why are you doing that? We worked on that in practice. I'm so frustrated with you. And the mom is crying to me saying, I'm so worried about the mental health of my daughter right now because of the way the coach is treating her. And these are things that we need to consider is it's what is tough and what kids need right now in this world after COVID, after all the pressures they have on them with social media, is they need people to really care about them as a person and to help them develop a strong sense of personal identity. That is how we're so uniquely, that's the gift of sport for our children, and what we can never really forget and need to hold front and center when we think about what our role is in the lives of these children.
Yeah, really good stuff. And at the bottom line, it's still sport and it's supposed to be fun. And, kids need to become resilient. They need to develop toughness, but the sport experience, if it's not fun, hey, why are we doing it? Okay. So
yeah, and it can be fun, and you can build resilience at the same time. Like fun is, I think, a very confused word that we have. We think that fun means, but we had actually have really good science around what fun means from the fun integration theory study that they did at George Washington University. Amanda Visick did. Like, we know what fun is, and fun is a coach that cares about me. Fun is high standards among the team. Fun is teammates that I love. Like, that's what kids say is fun. And that's what professional athletes say is fun too. Like, so we need to remember that and not lose sight of that in this quest for the district championship and the this and the that. Like at the bottom line is what athletes will remember are the connections that they have. And that will help build resilience. That will help build that self-belief and be the foundation to this toughness, if you will, that we're discussing.
No, absolutely. And when you do all those things, when you're having fun, when the kids, like each other, all those other good things happen, including those district championships that you're talking about.
Yes.
It's not the other way around.
They're the result of it. Exactly. They're the result of everything else. So it's like where we start, reframing where we're starting sometimes is what we need to do.
No, absolutely. This has been really cool. You and I, we did not know each other. We were introduced by a mutual friend. We'll give her a shout out, Neil Morrison. And it's just been great. Really have enjoyed this time. Want to spend some more time with you, but we need to wrap this up. And we always end with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics as a player, as a coach, as an administrator. But right now, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor our Athletic Toolbox segment. When we come back, I'm going to ask Skye to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in that athletic director toolbox. So let's hear from Athletic Surveys. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Skye Eddy is going to put in her athletic director toolbox. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Athletic Director Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also gives the 95% of the parents and the players who really love your program a voice, and it helps demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials. and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466 or email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Once again, we have been visiting with Skye Eddy, the founder of Soccer Parenting, longtime soccer player, soccer coach, soccer guru. But now we're going to put her on the spot. We're going to have her send out a brand new athletic leader, but I'm only going to let her put 3 things in their toolbox. Skye Eddy, what 3 items are going to go in your athletic director toolbox?
Oh gosh, great question. I would say these are maybe framed for athletic director for sure. The first one would be a mission for equity. Equity and inclusion across all of your sports in terms of like facilities, the support that the athletes are receiving, those types of things. The second thing that I would put in this athletic director's toolkit would be this sense of empathy, just giving them a stronger sense of themselves and their ability to process that and understand what other people are feeling. So emotional intelligence is maybe another way that I could frame that. What we know about emotional intelligence is that it's learned. You can improve on these skills of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and team or group management. So a desire to improve their emotional intelligence would absolutely be top of the toolbox. Another thing that I would put in the toolbox for an athletic director would be a sense of standards-based leadership. So developing their leadership around clarity on what the standards are within the organization, especially important as you're leading in multiple teams, multiple coaches who are coming at this from different areas in terms of working in the school, not working in the school, but having very clear standards. The 2 things that come to mind as far as those standards would be the standards for player interactions between the coach and the player, and maybe the parent. We'll throw that in since I am soccer parenting. And also standards for what kind of built into that interactions would be like clarity about what the athlete's role is. I think, we run into that a lot, especially in the youth game. So like what your role is on this team and helping athletes work through that. So those would be the 3 things that I put in the toolbox.
Wow. I'm sure you saw me writing down notes there. Great stuff. And very consistent with a lot of the things that you shared with us. I think both, personally for you and also from the website. So once again, soccerparenting.com, and go ahead and give out the other website for your new program.
The sidelineproject.com.
Sidelineproject.com. Skye Eddy, thank you so much for spending this time with the Educational AD podcast, and all the best moving forward.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews get uploaded to the Educational AD podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening today. Come back just about every day for new content on the Educational AD podcast. And before we go, we want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your program by going to hometownticketing.com and talk to their experts. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Once again, we want to say thanks for listening to today's episode. Make sure you check out the new 2nd edition of the Athletic Director's Toolbox on Amazon. That's going to be coming soon. Check out amazon.com for the Athletic Director's Toolbox 2nd edition. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.